Hey guys, it's Nicole Eaton with the Rock Your Soul book and podcast, where we talk about how to hack your mindset, grow your intuition, and live your best life. You can support this podcast by subscribing, leaving a positive review, and screenshot and sharing on social media. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. The biggest thing that's come up for a lot of my clients lately is this idea of we've gotten through the chaos of the last couple of years, right? And Heather and I talked about the chaos that we felt personally in January. And now it's time to step back into your power. Now, more than ever, this beautiful February energy, for me, it just feels like this momentum into the future, into what are you going to create? What do you want to do? What do you want that to look like? And for me, that's exciting. That's such an exciting energy to feel creative instead of in survival. When we're in survival mode, we are usually activated under stress, right? And prolonged stress is not healthy, right? We know this. We know this from science. We know this from studies of the brain and human anatomy, and the ways that stress impacts our organs and our heart, and actually stunts some of our brain growth. And when we're in survival mode, and it becomes the typical mode that we're in, it puts us in a state where we're not creating anymore. We're not even in control of our life. We're just responding to whatever shows up. We're just, in some ways, victims to our external circumstances. And when we're in survival mode, I want you to think of like prehistoric. When we're in survival mode, we're in this mode to fight or flight. We're in this mode where we have to be on edge because at any moment something really dangerous could happen. And the problem with our brain at this point in time is that our brain doesn't know what's real and what's not real. So we can put our body into a fight or flight state simply by a thought. A thought leads to an emotion. An emotion leads to action. And so when we're thinking about all of our to-dos and feeling overwhelmed because we have too many to-dos, instead of taking a deep breath and saying, okay, what can I focus on right now in this very moment? What is most important at this very time? Maybe it's that you rest. Maybe it's that you take a deep breath or do a meditation. Whatever that is, when we stop what we're fucking doing, what we're automatically doing, the process our brain wanted to do because we've been in stress before, we know how stressful things are, our body knows what to do in stress, when we just stop for a second. The power of the pause. That's what we'll call this episode. The power of the pause is that your brain has done the same things over and over again. And I was on the phone with a client yesterday, and we were talking about, she was talking about being anxious and change. And that's totally normal to be anxious about a change. And she was saying, I anticipate before this change occurs that I'm going to be quite panicked the week before. And I was like, wow, that's a very long time to be panicked about a change that eventually will be good. Not to deny that stress is a thing, the positive stress that we feel when we're making a positive change in our life. However, the prediction of how we're going to handle something impacts us just as much as the event itself. So when you're about to change your life, when you're about to step back into your power, there is this moment where you predict what you think is going to happen based on your past experiences and events. This is powerful, and this is where the power of the pause can come in. If we have a pause, if we take a breath, if we start to recognize, I'm getting overwhelmed. Ooh, my heart's beating a little faster. My brain is going 100 miles a minute. Ooh, I'm feeling really anxious and I don't even know why I'm feeling overwhelmed. When we start to notice our body going into that physiological familiarity, we have the option in that moment to do something different. Now we can feed into the emotions like we're feeding chips to pigeons on the beach. What happens or pigeons. I always say pigeons. I don't know why. Pigeons don't go on a beach. Like we're feeding seagulls on a beach. You know how when you feed a seagull a chip, on the beach, you're sitting on the beach, you're having, a couple drinks with your friends, playing football with the kids, going in and out of the ocean, and then you're eating. And what happens is all of these birds notice you're eating. They have like these crazy sixth sense that there's food, this hyper smell situation where they just freaking know. And what do? If you feed a seagull, more will come every time. And then you've got like 25 seagulls surrounding your whole beach setup, ready to tear down the place or shit all over the place, one or the other. But our thoughts and our brain and our emotions are exactly like that. When we feed it, when we focus on it, when we give it permission to take over, and sometimes when we have that anxious start, we feed into the anxiety by noticing it. Oh my God, my heart's beating faster. Oh my God, there's more things to think about. And when we feed into a thought, what happens is that our brain says, okay, like thoughts. I have to find like thoughts, because our brain is just a matchmaker, right? So when our brain starts to find like thoughts, those thoughts breed more emotion. So if I have the thought of, oh my God, this is so overwhelming. I have so many, I'm just thinking of somebody in like graduate school. I have so many assignments that need to be done. And I've got this situation where I've got a family dinner coming up this week and I've got all of these assignments. What am I going to do? When we start to feed into the emotion, we reduce our ability to act, and we reduce our ability to feel confident and step back into our power to make an action plan for ourselves. And we also reduce our ability to approach a situation with calm. And again, this is partly based on that prediction we talked about earlier. When we predict how something's going to happen, how we're going to respond, and it's a negative, chances are we're going to respond that way. I had my daughter's 13. We have a lot of hormones in our house. We have a lot of learning moments in our house right now. And this morning, she was just having a rough morning. She couldn't get her eyeliner right. Her hot coffee spilled all over her. She's a latte decaf drinker. Anyway, she's like, just going to be a freaking bad day. Like, we're going to have a bad day. And so we got in the car, we dropped off her little sister, and I said to her, okay, what kind of day do you want to have? She's like, well, obviously it's off to a rough start. I'm like, it is. It is off to a rough start. You're right. But what happens if we start to decide how differently your day can go from here? The power of the pause. What if in any given moment, you're able to take a deep breath in, calm your entire system down, because the power of breathing is so undervalued. Guys, if you're not like just intentionally breathing throughout your day, you're probably being a victim to your environment, right? So when we notice the overwhelm, when we notice the stress response, when we notice we're starting to shift into that fight or flight, what happens in our brain is that we're looking for exits. We're looking to fight. Our brain is doing the things it needs to do for survival. It needs to survive. That's the only job. And the only job of survival creates limitations in our environment. So if we think of like cavemen, we think of when we're in a state of survival, we're just looking for a way out. We are literally looking for exactly what's in front of us. We're not thinking about other possibilities and options. It limits our ability to think properly and think creatively. So when we catch ourselves in those states, and that's all you have to do. It's not that you don't get sucked into those states. I get sucked into those states. I get sucked into the whole bad day narrative that I can have, that we can all have. It's just been a crappy day, blah, blah, blah. But when we take a pause and we take a breath, we get to rewrite our story and we get to rewrite our day. So I'm sitting with Cameron this morning. That's my 13-year-old. And we're in the car, and longest traffic line that we've had this year. So I'm thinking, thank God, this is such a blessing because we can have a longer conversation about this. And so I said, okay, so that's what happened this morning. Let's take a deep breath, calm everything down. You're safe. You're safe. You're safe. When our body starts to go into fight or flight, it's an immediate feeling of not being safe. Fighting or flighting means that I have to run out of this scenario because I'm in danger, or I have to fight to protect what I love or what I care about or what's near and dear to me, whatever that is. So when we take a deep breath and we remind ourselves, no, I'm safe, we start to shift our power back. Now we're not just a victim to whatever's showing up in our environment. We are now creators. And so I said, okay, let's calm your breathing down. Let's take some deep breaths. Wherever on your body you're feeling that heaviness or that sadness or that upset, let's just honor it. Like, let's look at it. Okay, we've got that over your heart. You might feel density. You might feel heaviness over your heart. And that might feel like a color. I always like to give things a color. And so I think, okay, heaviness just feels like black or gray or like a murky brown. And so we've got this murky brown over your heart space or in your throat sometimes when you're afraid to speak up about something, or maybe even just that pressure over your head where you just can't even see a way out. And I want you to breathe in a color that feels really light, really confident, really calm. Like, what do you need right now? Let's breathe in a color that feels like that. And so we just take a minute and we slow everything down and we trade out that heaviness for something a little lighter. So when you breathe in that calming color. A lot of people like to breathe in white light or gold or pink or like a calm teal blue color. And then when you're breathing out, I want you to just exchange that heaviness. We're going to just allow it to go out with your exhale. So breathe in that light and breathe out that heaviness. And when you do this, you start to not only center and ground yourself, you start to not only trade out that energetic heaviness for something a little lighter, but you start to declare intention over your moment. And in any scenario, the moment you can control is always right now. It is always this very moment. The moment you're listening to this, I don't care what kind of day you've had, you get to reset it right now. You get to calm down right now. You get to center yourself right now. At any given moment, that is your power, is to redecide in this moment, I'm taking my power back. I'm taking my day back. I'm taking control of my day. And when I shift out of survival mode into a creative mode, that's where things get to change for me. I have daughters, so I don't know if anybody is familiar. If you don't have kids, if you'd be familiar with the block building video game Minecraft. But I always think of it like this, right? One time, the first time I ever played Minecraft with the kids was with my daughter Cameron. She's very artsy, creative, and so we played in creative mode. I didn't know the difference between any of the modes because I don't play this game. But we played in a creative mode and she taught me how to build this like mansion, and we collected sheep as pets and we gave them all names, and it was like just this little mansion we built over a waterfall, and it was, kind of fun for a video game. Not a big video game person, but like it was kind of fun for a video game. The second time I played, I started to do the same thing, but I was playing with my younger daughter, Kylie. Kylie is she's a little edgy. She's adventurous. We love that. She's hilarious. If you ever met her, she's fucking funny. But Kylie had put it on a different mode that I didn't know exists. So all of a sudden, we're playing this game and it gets dark. And there's all these, they're called creepers and skeletons and all these scary looking things that now are coming out of the darkness trying to kill me. She's like, Mommy, you have to hide in your house. And I'm like, wait, I don't want to hide. Why are these things trying to kill me? Nothing killed me last time. Nothing tried to kill me last time. And she was like, well, they are. We're in survival mode. So you have to, like, when you build your house, then you have to get inside of it so you can stay safe. And I'm like, why would we be playing something trying to kill us when we could just play in creative mode? And I think about that all the time when I'm in that panic state. Okay, so at any given moment, I can change my perception. I can calm my body down and I can reset how this day is going to go. Why the hell would I stay in survival mode? So the power of the pause really comes in when we start to catch ourselves feeling overwhelmed, feeling stressed, feeling anxious, slow everything down, and then the conversation I had with my daughter was, okay, so how do you want to feel today? Well, I want to feel better. I'm like, okay, well, what does better feel like? How do you know if you're feeling better? Well, I don't feel on the verge of crying. Okay, so we don't want a negative. We really want to look at not what you don't want, but what you do. So you want to feel calm, right? You want to feel content. You want to feel fulfilled in your day. You want to feel maybe confident in how you're approaching things. When we step out of that mode, we stop being a responder to our environment and we start being a creator of it. And that's your power. The power of the pause allows you to make a conscious decision to step back into being in control of your body, of your physiology, of your mind. Because when we get off route, we get into this place where we're just kind of spinning. Our brain is like software that runs automatically, and we've programmed it a certain way. We've programmed the software a certain way. And so that's our subconscious, right? Is we've programmed it a certain way, and it's going to go do the routes that it typically does. It's going to go down that anxious route if you're used to going down an anxious route. And so it takes the power of the pause to make an intentional decision of like, how am I going to live better? How am I going to let this bad day not become a bad week? How am I going to let this bad morning not become a bad day? There's no escaping life. Life is going to be whatever. You're going to have circumstances arise, but your power always comes back to how am I going to handle this differently? What kind of tools or personality traits do I need right now to be able to handle this better? What do I need right now? Even if you're like, I don't even know what I want to manifest right now, but like, what can I do for myself in this very moment? So maybe that is you go for a walk, get outside. I just opened all the windows. I was feeling a little anxious before doing this podcast, and I realized my anxiety was coming from like 3 cups of coffee. I don't usually have that much caffeine, but when you recognize that your body is doing something, your brain is going to want to make meaning out of it. My brain could have been like, oh, you're anxious because you've got this, this, and this coming up. But by choosing to just open the windows, redirect my energy, take some deep breaths, I was able to say, no, I'm ready to record a podcast right now. I have so much information that I want to share with you guys today to help you step back into your power. And we're doing it. So at any given moment, you get to become the creator of your day, in your moment, in your mood, and you are not victim to anything else. This isn't to say we don't process emotions. I'll say this 1,000 times over. There's a time and place to understand why you're having the reactions and why you got triggered. We talked about this last time in Authentic Girls Get Honest with Heather Mayo, the last episode. I think it's 82. So if you want to go back and revisit that, it's a great episode. But this is about you pausing, collecting yourself, taking a deep breath, and then coming back to, okay, how could this go in my favor? What would be nice? What would feel good to me? How do I want to step back into my power? Something silly and simple can put you back into your power. So I was doing an energy session with a client, and she was saying, one of the things that we talked about is in some of my sessions, I do read auras. Auras are energy around your body, and they have different colors based on your personality and based on what kind of person you are. Some people have like an orange, which kind of signifies for me that they're more creative. Some people have a red. Red can really go one of 2 ways. Red can be a really empowered leadership color, or it can be anxiety. Each color, each personality trait has a high expression and a low expression. So we've been talking about this red in her energy field, that when she starts to get anxious, how do we find the power version of that? By taking a deep breath and stepping back into that. Another cheat code that she found this week was that accessing red shirts, red clothing, red nails, red in her environment allowed her to remember her personal power. So you might even create a little cheat code for you. I know they have little mantra bracelets, or maybe you have a screen, a background on your screen that is like reflective of an empowering statement or a sentence that resonates with you. But you can create reminders in your environment that you're in control, that you have the power to change things, that you're a badass, that you get to step back into your power and say, okay, I'm done being a victim to this circumstance. How do I want to handle this? How do I want to move forward? What would need to happen? What would I need to do? And sometimes I just set the intention or say a prayer to invite in a shift in perception. What does that mean? A shift in perception. I'm perceiving this in this way. Inviting in a shift of perception just means that you're willing to see the situation from a different perspective. Maybe there's things that you're missed. I was writing in the book I'm working on, and I was talking about gap filling. When our brains are excellent meaning makers, but a lot of times it fills in missing information based on your fear narratives, your insecurities. So I use the example in the book that I have a friend who's going through a really bad breakup, and she's really heartbroken, and her partner and her, her partner has moved on to dating somebody else. And this has been a really heartbreaking thing. And so she said to me, she's like, how could she be moving on when I'm still feeling like this? Like, she's got to be happy. And I'm, just over here feeling sorry for myself. And this other person that she's dating must be better than me. And so we were in this scenario where she's creating meaning that this other person is better than her based on her own insecurities, that her partner must be incredibly happy when she's over here sad. None of which is true that we know factually. We haven't talked to the partner. We haven't asked her those questions. We haven't gotten clarity on that. We just know from Instagram or Facebook that this is the scenario. So when we start filling in gaps based on our own insecurities, we start to hurt our healing and our progress and our healing. And we also lose our power to these stories, right? If I'm most afraid that I'm not enough, if that's a narrative that I have in my world that's developed, then by creating meaning out of the scenario, out of the breakup, if my fear is that I'm not enough, then I would have to say that happened because I'm not enough. Now, that's a really hard thing to heal from. That's harder than just healing from a situation that wasn't compatible, right? That's harder than being like, okay, this we tried really hard, that didn't work out. But now we've had this extra layer of this also affirms a deep core belief that you're not enough. So I want you to ask yourself too, while you're doing this, when you're bringing your power back, is the meaning I'm making out of this scenario helping or hurting me? Is it even true? Our brain likes to make shit up. we have to call it out. We have to rope it back in. Somebody has to. We have to rope it back in. So your job today, as you go through your week, is the power of the pause. Pausing, taking a deep breath, and asking yourself, how do I want to heal? How do I want today to go? Okay, I accept that this morning did not go my way. I accept that maybe Monday through Wednesday did not go my way. But I'm willing to have a better day. I'm willing to be open to receiving a better experience this week. Sometimes just the willingness to be open to better matters. Sometimes the willingness to be open to see things differently changes everything. We can have really fucked up perceptions of things. We can really get into a perception, like I said, that's based on a narrative or based on a story or an old story of insecurity, of fear, of abandonment, of neglect. So we have to be really careful if what we're telling ourselves is helping us and moving us towards what we ultimately are and want and how we want to be and how we want to move through our day, or if what we're telling ourselves is creating discord. As you're moving through the day, you're going to take a pause. You're going to come back to your power, whether that's getting triggered by a color that brings you joy, by breathing, by just setting some new intentions up. I'm willing to feel better today. Each moment, actually, I feel a little lighter. I feel a little bit better. I'm connecting with the right people. Set yourself up for a good day. Don't decide that what's happened this morning or this week or the last few years has to mean shit for your future. It doesn't. Every moment is like individual of the next moment. You get to, from this point on, manifest, create, and design your life, your personality, and your day from here on out. So choose wisely. Step out of survival mode. That's your power. Step out of survival mode. When you step into it, being intentional about your day, about your moment, about your breathing, any of it, it starts to shift for the better. I feel like next week I've got to talk more about manifestation. So if you're into that, if you have questions for me around it or around what I talked about today, make sure you DM me, join my group, ask questions. I love questions. I love helping people get clear on things that they're not sure about. That's my favorite thing, which means you can also book a session with me at NicoleEaton.com. I have sessions up there. We can explore where you're stuck and just set up a plan for you to move out of it, shift out of it, create some understanding, process some feelings, and manifest a better life, because you can do it. You are Stardust, my friends. And if you'd like to connect with me on Instagram, it's NicoleEaton.xo, and on TikTok, NicoleEaton.xo. and join my Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/rockyoursoulclarity. I love you all. I appreciate when you share the content that I create, and I appreciate you leaving a review. That's a one way you can support this podcast. All right, catch you later. Thank you so much for listening to the Rock Your Soul book and podcast. Take a moment to book a one-on-one session with me or purchase my trainings at NicoleEaton.com. Join the Rock Your Soul Facebook group or follow me on Instagram at NicoleEaton.xo. And if you loved this podcast, don't forget to share it. Thank you.